Hi everybody, I'm Hayden Crawford from numerologist.com and I'm a wellness coach specialising in colour therapy. Today I'm going to be revealing 3 powerful techniques so that you can identify, confront and then embrace your shadow self. Have you fallen victim to self-sabotaging patterns? Psychiatrist Carl Jung describes the shadow self as a place of repressed emotions, desires and impulse that are hidden from conscious awareness. In order to break free from these destructive behaviours, it's essential to confront the shadow so that it can be released. This process involves unveiling our unconscious desires so that we can recognise, heal and then integrate them to promote positive change in our lives. Our subconscious and unconscious are responsible for a large proportion of our behaviour. They host an array of deep-seated belief systems which fester beneath the surface. These are usually seeded during our childhood. Ironically, most people focus on what they're consciously aware of instead of shining a light into their internal programs, which may be inspiring their actions and impacting on them, creating the life of their dreams. Many people are totally unaware of what's lurking in their shadow, and these forgotten aspects are playing havoc with their reality. The shadow self or the subconscious doesn't know whether it's sabotaging you or not, but it does stop you from accessing your authentic power. That's why it's essential to bring the shadow self to the surface and create a dialogue between you and your dark side so that you can promote positive change in your life. So why is it important to integrate your shadow? Well, my first reason is that self-acceptance leads to being less judgmental and more accepting of other people. The second reason is that owning your shadow leads to a greater sense of wholeness, balance and inner peace. The next reason is by releasing exhausting repression leads to greater vitality and improves your health. And finally, number 4 is that by befriending these dark emotions, it leads to greater creativity and increases your sense of inner peace. So here are 4 powerful ways for you to be able to own your dark side, overcome subconscious blocks and stop self-sabotaging patterns so that you can finally set yourself free. Number 1 is to know that you're worthy. Now the first step to overcoming your shadow and taking back your life is to recognise and really know deep within yourself that you are worthy of good things. It's all too easy every now and again to kind of slip into a mode of self-pity. Now that's okay for a short time, but if we get used to it, it can take hold of us and it can really stop us from becoming the best version of ourselves. Number 2 is to observe your emotions. Now, our negative emotions present a window for us to be able to observe our shadow self. And remember that none of these emotions that we perceive as being negative are actually bad. It is actually very important because they show us exactly what's going on for us and help us to work out what our fears are and any traumas that we may have yet to resolve. What I love about shadow work is that it offers us the opportunity to be able to ask ourselves, what is the emotion that we're feeling and why are we feeling it? Now, please be patient with this because sometimes the answers don't come up to the surface straight away. It can take a little bit of time. So just allow whatever takes place to take place on its own timeline. Shadow work is known as soul work because it actually does take you on a bit of a journey. So just allow this process to be organic and then you'll flow with it. And that's when the results will become much, much better. Number 3 is to explore your emotions compassionately. Try to avoid blaming other people for the way that you feel. That's a sure way of falling into victim mode. Really, if someone has hurt you, try and look at the situation from a different perspective. Maybe they were doing the best that they could at the time with the conditions and circumstances they had around them. Maybe that they were just acting from their own wounds. Now it's very important to try and find forgiveness for those people so that you can move on with your life. Now it's also just as important to avoid blaming yourself for the emotions that you're feeling. Just allow yourself to feel anything that might be difficult to deal with. It might be grief, guilt, blame, shame, resentment. It's okay, we're human. You know, everybody feels negative emotions from time to time. So it's important to recognize that that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And, you know, that way you can kind of let it go and it ceases to have any control over you. And finally, number 4 is to investigate the shadow. Now, psychologists use art therapy as a modality to be able to help their patients explore their inner selves. And that's because art is a fantastic way for the shadow to be able to manifest itself. Now, there are other techniques as well that you can use if you're not partial to putting paper and paint together to create an image. You could actually use mindfulness, you could write a letter, you could journal, you could feel, you could dream. All of these techniques are just as powerful. The most important thing though is that you actually look face on at those emotions and feelings that you are frightened of, because it's the only way that you're ever going to be able to shine the light on them so that they can be released. So utilize these fantastic tools, write about them and make art from them. So here are my 6 powerful steps for you to be able to identify, confront and embrace your shadow self. Now remember that the shadow is always motivated by fear. It could be a fear of not being good enough, a fear of not being loved, or even a fear of your darkest emotions. So how do we actually break this vicious cycle? Number 1 is to identify the shadow. Now our shadows are hidden within our subconscious. We've actually buried them down there, so that's why it can be quite tricky to identify them. Now, in order to do shadow work, we have to be able to identify what emotions are located down there. What is it that's creating these patterns? So the first thing that we really need to do is to be able to think about a feeling or an emotion that we've been struggling with recently, and it might be something that's come up a lot. So for example, it could be that you've been feeling angry and you've noticed that it keeps on arising and it keeps on happening, and you get triggered by certain situations or events. So you've identified this emotion, you've identified that there's an anger that comes up frequently for you. Now this could be the start of a deeper pattern that sits behind that, and the anger really is just a surface emotion that's like an indicator trying to highlight something that's festering beneath the surface. Now the interesting thing about this is that anger or sadness, grief, guilt or shame, we often run away from them because they're just so challenging, they're so difficult to deal with. But they are almost like a mask for a deeper belief that is usually located to one of those fears. A fear of not being good enough, a fear that you are unlovable, that you're flawed in some way, or a fear that you have to look after absolutely everybody else and not yourself. Now, many of the people that come and see me for a wellness consultation find it almost impossible to be able to identify their shadows because they're kind of coming about it from a conscious mind perspective, you know, a sort of logical or analytical approach, which doesn't work a lot of the time. So the way I assist my clients to be able to identify their shadows is I get them to intuitively select some of the colour mirrors, these dual coloured oil bottles, like the ones behind me. And there's so many, there's 87 different ones. Now, I'll just ask very strategic questions to them, like, where are you at in your life right now? Where do you want to be? What's blocking you from getting there? How are you going to get from where you are now to where you want to be? And what is your main challenge or obstacle? And then from there, I'm able to read their colour bottles, their conscious and subconscious segments, which is the conscious is at the top and the subconscious is at the bottom. And I can see straight away what it is that is holding them back, what is lying in the depths of their shadow. And that way we can look at the next stage of this process, which is journaling. Step 2 is to journal your shadow talk. So I want you to find your darkest feelings and thoughts, and then I want you to give a voice to them, and I want you to write them down without a filter onto a piece of paper. Now I want you to just allow yourself to go through this process until you reach a natural void. I want you to try and feel the emotions as you're writing them down, and also try and send love to them as they arise. That's the real key. Now, I also want you to make sure that as you're going through this process, that you're not identifying yourself as being a bad guy. You know, you're okay, everything's fine, everybody's human, everyone has these thoughts and feelings from time to time. So don't beat yourself up as you're going through it. Then, once you've got everything down on your piece of paper in front of you, I then want you to take it. I want you to either screw it up into a tight ball and throw it in the bin, or, you know, if you've got a small fire pit outside or a little bonfire, I want you to go and burn it. All right. Now, if you've typed it all out on your computer in an application like Word, then I just want you to delete the file. Okay. So this way, what you're allowing is for those emotions to wash through you and out of you. Hence, they are starting to be released. Step 3 is to locate and feel the pain in your body. Now, the way to do this is to close your eyes and start concentrating on your breath. Now, after you've slowed your breathing down, I want you to revisit an emotion that you've been struggling with recently, and it could be that anger again, for example. So I want you to think about that anger, and I want you to feel it as much as you can at this moment in time without a filter. I want you to allow yourself, give yourself permission to feel this anger wherever you're feeling it in your body. So it could be that you're feeling the anger in your heart. So you're breathing deeply into this anger that you're feeling in your heart, breathing deeply into this anger at this moment in time that you're feeling in your heart. And I want you to then give it a number between 1 and 10, which kind of indicates how much you're feeling it. So 1 not being very much and 10 being a lot. And if you get to a 7 or an 8, I want you to see if you can raise it to a 9 or a 10. So I want you to feel this anger in your heart to the level of a 9 or a 10. And I want you to breathe deeply into it. And then what I want you to do is to just look over the top of it in your mind's eye, like using your imagination, almost like you're climbing over the top of a tall wall or opening a door and peering behind it. And then I want you to tell yourself, what is the emotion or the feeling that sits just behind the anger in your heart? And something will come up for you. So it could be sadness. And if the sadness comes up, I then want you to locate that. Where are you feeling that in your body? Where is that pain reflex in your body? And it might be that this sadness is in your stomach. So then I want you to breathe into the sadness and give yourself permission to feel this sadness in your stomach as much as you can at this moment in time. Feel that sadness in your stomach, feel it as much as you can, breathe deeply into it. And then once again, I want you to look behind it and see what emotion or feeling sits behind the sadness in your stomach and locate it in the body. Now, as you're going through this process, I also want you to be aware of any memories that come to the surface. And sometimes it could be a memory of when you were, a child, maybe aged between 0 and 7, when something happened to you that you were sad about. It could have been, that you were left at home, and you had a sense of abandonment or a fear of being alone that arose from that. So I want you to just note that, continue on with the process of going through the layers. Now, during this process of going through your layers of emotion, you'll always get to a place, well, hopefully you'll get to a place where you feel a release of some sort. Now, that could be a release which could be a feeling of joy, a feeling of love, a feeling of deep inner peace. Now, once you've got to that point, I want you then to wash that sensation up through the layers, through the sadness that you were feeling in your stomach, through the anger that you were feeling in your heart, and ask yourself, if it had a voice, what would it say to that sadness in your stomach or that anger in your heart? And then just allow the answers to come up from your subconscious mind. So this is a really, really powerful process. And this is going to help you to kind of journey up, and it's going to bring new awareness into each areas of the body where a lot of this trauma or fear is caught within your cellular memory. Step 4 is to visit your wounded inner child. Now, childhood trauma can be caused by the way that we were parented, and this can cause an array of both emotional and behavioural patterns that form our personality. So what we want to do is we want to visit that wounded inner child during this process. So the best way to do this is whilst you are in that meditative state, you're in alpha state at this point, your eyes are closed, and you've just washed all the emotions through your body, and you've come to a place where I want you to visualize a beautiful scene. Now, this can be a crystal lagoon, or it can be a beautiful meadow surrounded by tall pine trees, and in the center of that is a beautiful flickering bonfire surrounded by logs. And then I want you, as you are today, so the person that you are today, I want you to imagine you walking over and either taking a seat on a log around the fire or on a beautiful amethyst rock by the crystal lagoon. So whatever feels right for you. And then I also want you to visualize that younger version of yourself, the one that was traumatized or hurt, that came up in the memory that you had during your previous step. So I want you to just imagine them walking over towards you, or if they're too young, just imagine them appearing sitting on your lap, and allow them to sort of take a seat wherever you feel comfortable around this fire or this crystal lagoon. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to turn to that younger version of yourself, and I want you to say what you feel needs to be said. So just allow it to flow, and then ask for their response and see how they respond. And then keep this dialogue open, going between these two versions of yourself, this younger version of yourself and the version that you are today. And you'll find that you'll get to a place where you want to offer yourself lots of love, support and compassion and forgiveness in some cases. But I want you to feel this merging taking place, and this new sense of love and this new heightened awareness around this trauma or this fear or this memory that has caused you a lot of problems in your life up until this point. So then what I'd like you to do is, once you've reached that, I want you to just imagine hugging that younger version of yourself and just feel your hearts merging together in a soft pink light. And that's helping you to integrate these two aspects of yourself. Step 5 is to visit your future self. So after completing this process, I want you to take a leisurely stroll down your timeline at various different increments of time. And I want you to just observe how you are feeling, what's going on in your life, and who you've become. And I'd like you to start off by waking up the next day. So it's the next day, and you just see how you're feeling. What's the general sensation like around you? And then move forward by a week, and then 2 weeks, and then a month, and then 3 months, and then 6 months, and then a year, and finally 5 years. So this is where you're really going to stretch your imagination, and you're going to see yourself in 5 years' time from now. And you're going to visualize what's going on in your life. Who have you become? Who's around you? How do you feel? And you're going to talk about all of that in as much detail as possible. And this is really going to help you to move well beyond this current construct of your very, very singular perspective on who you believe that you are. And it's going to open you up to a multi-dimensional aspect of who are yet to become. And the interesting thing is, right at the end of this process, what I'd like you to do is to then write a letter from the person that you become in 5 years' time back to the person that you are today or at the time of doing this, and see what advice and guidance that this future version of you will give to this current version of you. What would he or she say to you to be able to encourage you, or to be able to help you see a broader perspective on a situation? And finally, step 6 is to bathe in your chosen colour mirrors bottle. So the one that you feel that you're attracted to more than any of the others. I want you to pour the contents into your bath, submerge your body, and allow the colour frequencies to go in to the cellular memory and clear away the shock, trauma, or abuse that may be still stored there. It's a beautiful way of finally feeling free so that you can actually breathe properly again. Now remember that these shadows thrive in secret. So the more you hold onto them, the bigger they're going to get. So really, the process is about recognizing that you are lovable and you are somebody who is capable of giving the most beautiful, unconditional love to other people as well. So be kind to yourself. Learn to love and accept yourself just as you are. You know, we've all got flaws. It's okay. But by taking this action on shining a floodlight into the darkest aspects of yourself, you literally are going to start illuminating. You'll start transforming into this beautiful light body where you can begin to experience heaven on earth. And that's what it's all about. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that today. Leave a few comments below to let me know what your thoughts and feelings are, and also how you get on with the process if you decide to embark upon it. You might find it easier to utilize the services of a local colour mirrors practitioner to be able to help you through this with ease and grace, because it can be quite challenging, it can be quite painful. So just trust whatever feels right for you, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.